Hi everyone, thank you for joining me for another episode of AppScan Tuesday. This is episode number 43, and today we are going to talk about AppScan Enterprise and how to run dynamic analysis scans with it. And to help me with that, I have Adrian Owens joining me in the studio. Adrian is a senior technical advisor in charge of the federal market, U.S. federal market. Hi Adrian.
Hey, Aton, how are you doing? It
I'm
just
doing
dawned on me that 43 is a prime number. So, this is a prime AppScan Tuesday we're working on today.
and I have a prime guest with me. So I waited, right? You couldn't join me in the 17th and 19th, so 43. Um, Thank you for joining. And I've asked you on the show to talk about AppScan Enterprise. We didn't have many videos on it, and you are one of the experts that we have. Today you will show us how to use that to have really hands-on DAST configurations instead of just using the UI, right?
That's correct. So, although you can use ADAC outside of the monitor view, the whole purpose of the monitor view is to elevate your game, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people are just focused on scanning. Oh, I got to do a scan. Let's scan. I got to scan. Well, application security management and the monitor view lets you start consolidating scan data into the overall health of an application. So you can bring information from AppScan dynamic scans,
Mm-hmm.
source code scans, now IaaS scans. If you did a pen test, you can bring that information in a code review, and indeed, you could probably bring information from other vendors into a single pane of glass, right? So that's one big benefit of it. And then the other thing that they added is ADAC, and ADAC gives you a more AppScan standard like experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it lets you capture data in one tool. So within ADAC, I can record a login, I can record a manual explorer, a multi-step operation. So it's really good as you scale AppScan out to different members of the team, those that are less security savvy. It gives them just a single place to go to create the whole scan.
Yeah, and it's not to say that we can't do a point and click, but point and shoot scan. But if you really want to get to the bottom of it, get deep inside, dynamic analysis require configuration, right? You can get, and AppScan is a great tool with automatic crawling and all that, but often enough, you need to understand the logic of the application, and no automated tool can do that on its own. So that's where it
That,
comes in.
yeah, yeah, it might be data dependent logic, for example. So you'd have to put in a proper contract number or something like that.
Correct.
But to your point, there's only points of data you really need to run a scan. You need a URL.
Mm-hmm.
You need usually a login or maybe no login. And then you need what type of test policy or how expansive your testing is going to be. And with those three data items, you can often run,
Mm-hmm.
pretty good scans. But there's times you've got to expose all sorts of things about the scan and solve problems, because it's a lot like performance testing, and that's kind of where I cut my teeth. You're ripping the browser and the application out of the way,
Mm-hmm.
and you're turning this thing into just a raw set of HTTP, and AppScan is trying to act like an application just using that information. And there's times you need to configure things so that things don't go wrong. We did a proof of concept, and AppScan kept losing session, and we finally figured out it was going into the admin area, and they had a feature called reset everybody's password. And we were clicking it, and so there's a feature in AppScan to exclude
Yeah.
an area, right? So there's a lot you can do if you need to, is
Yeah,
what it comes
because
down
if
to.
there is an action, AppScan might find it, and we'll try to find it, and we'll try to execute it. So we need to. Let's
That's
jump
right.
into it. Let's show the demo on ADAC.
All right, so I'm going to show just a couple of slides. We're going to talk a little bit about the AppScan Dynamic Analysis Client, or ADAC. And so what is ADAC? So ADAC is a rich client interface for scan configuration. So it downloads off your enterprise server. It does not download off of the FlexNet site or the Poetic site. It's on your server, and you can either use the browser to download it, or you can go fetch it directly and supply it to your teammates. It does need a template, so it's a template-driven scan configuration. We provide you templates out of the box to use, but you can also create your own custom templates. Anything else exciting here? Yeah, for me, one of the more exciting things is it lets you capture recorded data. So I can record a login right from this tool. I can record a manual explore, a multi-step operation. And indeed, I can take that manual explore and just turn it into more of a unit test. I can, focus my test only on those things in the manual explore. So when we talk about configuring a scan, right? You set the scan up. That's the configure phase. You can then either do your own explore, so we call that a manual explore, or you can let AppScan just do all the exploring. Many people do like or do need to add a manual explore, a multi-step operation, so that AppScan really knows how to go after certain test cases or use cases. And then once you have all that set up, you can test and report. And ADAC really plays in the front of this whole process of setting the scan up and letting you, define all the things that you may need to define, and then helping you with the manual part of the Explorer, the recorded login, the manual Explorer, the multi-step operation. So that's really where it plays. So we're just going to jump right into the demo. So I'm in AppScan Enterprise, and ADAC is the configuration client of that. And I have an application here called ADAC Demo. And it's quite easy for me to create a scan with ADAC. I just simply click the Create Scan button, and that invokes this second web page. And I need a place to put my scan in case I ever need to edit it. So I'm going to put it in my demo scans folder. And then we talked about templates. I need to pick a template. And a template is really just a set of predefined configurations. These are the out-of-the-box templates, but you may have your own template. You may create a template that does certain behaviors for users, or you may create a template for a specific technology. Like, let's suppose you had a legacy Cold Fusion application that had some custom parameters, or a legacy ASP application, or heck, who knows, even a CGI application, right? And that's another use for a template. But in our demo, we're just going to pick the regular scan template, and you'll notice it now says use the ADAC client to create. Now, if I didn't have ADAC installed, there'd be a download link on this page, and I could just pull it off my AppScan Enterprise server and install it. But mine's all ready to go, so I'll hit create, and it's going to jump down to my desktop, and it's going to open up ADAC. And it's also going to set the template for me. That's what that little flash was. And like we said earlier, really all you really need to do to set up a scan is you need a URL. You need to have a login, and this is again where ADAC becomes very handy, because I've now got an integrated recording environment. So I will say record login, and I'll pick the Chromium browser, and we're out on our demo test fire site, and I'll just log in, and hopefully there we go. It's just a little slow. Since we're proxying the traffic through, sometimes it's a little bit slow. So J Smith demo 1, 2, 3, 4, and I do login, and I'm logged in, and I'm going to take this button here. I'm logged in, and now it's going to process that login information for me. Now, the only other data point we really need is, we got a URL, we got a login, and down here on job properties is, I need to give it a good name, so we're going to call this ADAC scan demo, right? So we need a good name for our scan, and we need a test policy. And of course, the test policy covers the completeness or the vastness of the testing that we'll do. So for example, if I pick the complete test policy, it's basically every test in our portfolio, including invasive. A lot of people don't like running invasive tests. So I could go down to something a little bit lighter, which is the default test policy, which is basically all of our tests, but none of the invasive ones. Really, that's all I need to run a test, but we might want to do a little bit more, right? So let us suppose we wanted to make this a unit test. Well, that's where the ability to do a manual explorer comes in, where I could just come in here and I could do, hey, I'm going to create a sequence. And let me do add. And again, it's going to open up AppScan. I'm going to do my little login bit here just because I have to be on the other side of the login. J Smith, demo 1, 2, 3, 4. Login, and I'll do, let's suppose, what's my use case? Well, I'm going to go check my credit card balance. Uh-oh, I got to pay some money, so I'm going to do a transfer. And I'll transfer from checking to credit card. You know, what did I owe? $12 and, wait a minute, Prime, 47 cents? No, wait, 43 cents. Mm-hmm. And I'll do transfer. And now I've done, you know, a little test case. Oh, and maybe I want to check recent transactions there. Now you can see my 1243, and I can hit OK. And again, it's grabbed that information, it's lined it up for me. Now, the test optimizer, right? This is one of the items that we put in the tool where you get to control AppScan speed, right? And, you know, there's always a trade-off between speed and thoroughness. And the default out of the box is fast, which says, you know, we'll find about 97% of the vulnerabilities. Whereas if I went all the way to the fastest, it says we'd scan about 70% of the vulnerabilities. But I'm going 10 times faster, you know, so then you get to choose the trade-off between, you know, speed and accuracy. Hey, Tom, when do you think some good, you know, when would you use maybe the fastest versus another setting?
I think it's the maturity of the DevSecOps practice that people have. If they want to scan often on a daily or more than that, I always use fastest because you want to complete quickly and get the results. But as you get closer to release or on a weekend build, do the fast. I find that no optimization is hardly ever needed. Though we are really being cautious with those 3% that we mentioned. It's mostly vulnerabilities that will be found in bake-offs and in benchmark applications, not in real-life applications. But the fact that we have it as a slider makes it so easy for the customers, for our users to try it out and decide on their own.
Yeah, I actually did some testing early on. I think it was between no optimization and fast. And you know, I didn't, in my test, I didn't see any loss I didn't see any increase in false negatives. So it actually did a pretty good job at that time. I would assume that's still the case.
Yeah. You know, we have yet to hear about a real issue that we missed with the no optimization. But again, we need to keep it because sometimes people want to do a bake-off, compare on known vulnerable applications, and that's what we have it.
Yeah, another you know, another item we have is we've got the ability to apply some machine learning to our crawling, right? So this helps AppScan navigate the site in a more efficient way. You know, so the general idea is let's crawl faster and then let's test faster, right? So you know, so they've definitely been investing, you know, in the technology to make it better. And if you were to go over to AppScan Standard, you know, it's real easy to actually do incremental scans. And then we do have the ability to do incremental scans via the AppScan source API. So if you were doing API-based automation, you could actually do incremental scans there. Mm-hmm. I think that's about all I'm going to cover in here, Eitan. But as we said, there's a lot of things you can configure. One that tends to come up a lot is can you slow AppScan down, right? So AppScan runs with 10 threads, and you can certainly slow it down, or you could slow it down with a slower request limit, right? Most people just scale the threads down. I had a customer that was testing it was actually a web application hosted on a router. It's how you configure your router. And AppScan was overwhelming the little web server. And, so we had to scale it back. But it was kind of an interesting thing to help somebody with, was that. All right, I'm going to go back to the job properties. Now, because I did a manual explorer, you'll notice that my test only button is enabled, right? So I could do a full scan, I could do a crawl only, or I could do a test only. And then I can run the job now, or I can run it later, or I could go schedule it. We'll just do run job now, and we'll send it back over to AppScan Enterprise. And that's basically what's happening, is it's creating the job in AppScan Enterprise. And I'll click done. And I'll be back in the monitor view, right? Now, if I want to see what's going on with the scan, I just come into the details and I roll down to where my scans are. And here you can see that I have my ADAC scan, and I can click this job properties, and it'll open a view that lets me, for example, look at the active log, right? So from the application view, I can get to here, and this log will start updating with basically, taking that job and deploying it to a scanner, and then it'll start crawling. So that's typically what happens. There it goes. It updated just there, and you can see it went to this scan agent. It's doing some stuff. It's skipping some things because we don't test JPEGs, and this is a great view to just kind of keep track of, how things are going. And then if we were to go back to our monitor view, to monitor, I ran a scan earlier, right? And so when your scan is done, you can come back into the details. Now this is a different application, and you can roll on down. And when your scan is done, it'll populate the results field. And then I'm able to really just jump and start looking at the actual reports, right? And I have a list of reports here. I could look at now AppScan follows a scan once, report however you want. So from a single scan, I can do an OWASP report, right? I can do a GLB report. That's Graham Leach. It's a banking report. Or I can just do a security report. Right.
Looks good. So let's bring you back to the studio.
All right, let me jump over here and
okay. Thanks, Adrian. This was really very detailed demo. I appreciate that. Way actually before more than what I expected, so I'm sure that the audience will be happy to see that. Now, you mentioned a couple of times that the ADAC is not for the security professional necessarily, because in the way that we work, when you run an application security program, the security person can write those templates for you, can configure, can even define what's in the test policy or define new test policies. And the rest of the folks in the organization just use ADAC with those settings to record the login or to manually explore the specific area that they want to scan.
That's right, yeah. But a security professional can use it as well, right? I mean, it's got almost, not quite, but almost everything AppScan standard has. So you can probably do, what, 95% maybe?
And of course, you can use AppScan standard. With AppScan Connect, it connects really nicely and easy to AppScan Enterprise or to the cloud. So we made everything together, tied it together. Anyway.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks, Adrian. I really appreciate it. Until next time. Bye-bye.
You're welcome, Eitan. Thank you.